You guys make me so happy. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Whew, it is a great big world, huh? And it is all about right now, as we are in these body forms, it's all about life here on earth. But we're also trying to stay in touch with something that's larger than just that. And there's this tension. I don't know. I have that tension. Do you guys have that tension? Between the awareness of something larger than ourselves, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it God, you can call it Allah, you can call it Buddha, you can call it science. It is that there is something larger than just who we are. And in that space, how do we dance between the truth of who we are, which is that we're larger than our human understanding, and yet we are living life down here on earth? And we've been talking this month about shadow. We've been talking because the quantum living class has been moving through. They're in their final week, so we're gonna wrap this series up next Sunday. But we have been diving into the things that we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves and being willing to take a look at what they are so that we can heal them and perhaps be able to show up in the world in a different way. And so shadow in and of itself is the parts of ourselves that we've disowned about ourselves. It's the part that we've said, oh, no, I am not that. Whatever it is that we've decided is bad and horrible, we do not want to be the monster that is reflected up on the back of the wall. We don't want anybody to see that we actually believe that we're the monster. We're pretending a lot. We're covering it up. We have all these magnificent coping strategies to try to help us keep it secret that there's parts of ourselves that we're really unhappy with. And so one of the main coping mechanisms that we have is projection. So I'm uncomfortable with it with myself, so I'm gonna say, nope, not me, and what I do is I project it out there on the world all around me. And so that's why we continually get to meet and interact with the most annoying people on the planet. Continually, over and over and over again. We're like, what? That person is working my last nerve. And notice how they always keep showing up and they're the same kind of person? The same kind of thing? Yeah, because I gotta tell you, take a breath. It's not really them. It's you projecting onto them. That's the pattern. You are the constant. Right? So we forget who we truly are. We forget that who we actually are is this living expression of all that there is, that available to each of us is this infinite resource of love, light, power, strength, beauty, harmony, that is the truth of actually who we have come here to be. And yet, most of the time, we're showing up in who we haven't come here to be. Because we're protecting ourselves. We're trying to keep ourselves safe. And that's particularly true when we come across the hard times. I don't know about you, but the past couple weeks have been a little intense. Anyone else feel like they're being pulled by the storm? Right? And sometimes we just feel like we're being drenched by the storm. And it's in these moments, and I talked about this last week, that this is really about transition and change. This is about our resistance to transition and change. And this community is in a lot of transition right now, right? We've got a lot going on internally, but we also are existing in a world that is in the midst of incredible transition and change. And we can't pretend, because this is what the shadow wants us to do. The shadow says, no, don't look over there. Don't look over there. It makes us uncomfortable. So we brought in a transitional consultant who's going to be working with the community, and I know some of you met her for the listening circles yesterday, and there are more listening circles available, so if you want to sign up, you can find information on our website. Reverend Cynthia wants to hear from all of us. But Some people might be struggling with the leadership change and with my stepping into leadership. Some of you are not. But what we are all struggling with is the fact that how do we navigate as a spiritual community in a post-COVID world that isn't actually post-COVID? Right? Okay? How do we navigate as a spiritual community in a post-COVID world when it's not actually really post-COVID? So all of the old models around spiritual community have been dying for about a decade. COVID sped it up rapidly. So this opportunity of transition is an opportunity for us as a community to come together and discover, who do we want to be in 2023? Who do we want to be? How do we want to show up in the world? And that's what we personally are continually being invited into, always. Who do we want to be? And when we resist transition, when we resist change, all we end up doing is increasing our own suffering. So why is transition and change so hard? Well, quantum living is broken down that we have some fundamental needs. And if those fundamental needs are threatened or not met, guess what? We get reactive. And those fundamental needs are our sense of safety and security. They are our sense of love and connection. They're our sense of worthiness, our sense of abundance, and then that sense of empowerment. And if any of these things are threatened, our sense of safety and security because there's a change in leadership, because COVID is around, it makes us feel unsafe, then all of a sudden, we are probably most likely not working from our highest self as to who we have come here to be, but we are operating from the part of ourselves that is caught up in fear and anxiety and worry because those needs are not being met. And we want the world to meet those needs, and the world is saying, nope, sorry, not going to happen. And we get angry. And we get frustrated, and we get irritated, and we get divided. We get polarity showing up in our world. Do you think that we live in a world of polarities right now? Whew. All of this is actually shadow. So when we can actually meet our own needs, when we meet our own needs, then we can stand, and here's the picture that I used last week, right? That we are actually the lighthouse in the midst of the storm, and you see the little guy hanging out there, right? It's like, this is cool, I'm good, I can handle this. I don't have to hide from the waves. I don't have to hide from the storm. I actually know who I am in the root of my root so that I can withstand whatever storms are happening in our life. That is what we know and believe in unity. And it is our capacity to grow this that enables us to show up as a beneficial presence for other people. You know that on the airlines, like put your mask on first before you put it on for the kids? The same thing is true here. If we have to first figure out how to navigate our own not getting our needs met and the reactiveness that arises before we can actually show up and truly be a beneficial presence for the world. So projection, right, which is how most of us navigate our shadow, that idea that we're putting it out there because it makes us too uncomfortable right here, shows up in a variety of ways. And you may recognize some of these, right? We're criticizing people. Anybody in here guilty of that? Judging people. Why are they doing it that way? That's just so weird. Okay. Blaming people. If they had only done it the way I told them to do it, then everything would be okay right now. Anger, right? Why can't they just listen to me? If I ruled the world. We might get annoyed. We might find ourselves just being sensitive. Like, oh, I don't know. It's just really hard right now, right? I'm just, right? That feeling of like, I'm just hypersensitive right now. Maybe we are withdrawing. And this is really a classic one. It's like, especially in spiritual communities, because we value peace, we value harmony, we value a sense of equanimity and calm. And so the number one coping strategy that spiritual communities will often use to avoid the uncomfortable is to just step back from it, to withdraw. But the thing is, when you withdraw like that, you may have a momentary sense of relief, but you're not actually healing the false belief that somehow you can't meet your own need. You're not actually healing yourself. You're just staying right where you are. The opportunity in projection and noticing it is that you can then shift yourself. You can heal yourself. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to drive down the freeway and not get irritated by crazy drivers? Just think about what that would mean for you, right? Let alone what it means in terms of everything else. When we're willing to let go of the story that we have built up about how people are just wrong and we are right, when we are willing to let that go, true healing is absolutely possible. Now, one of the main things that gets in our way from all of this is our pride, right? Because we want to be the strong, independent, lovely, compatible, competent person that we know we could be. And even when we aren't that, we don't want to admit to ourselves, wow, I really screwed that up, right? So our pride can be one of the number one obstacles to actually being willing to step into this space of deep transformation. So Carl Jung says, through pride, we are ever deceiving ourselves. But deep down below the surface, a still small voice says to us, something is out of tune. So even when we are avoiding and withdrawing and blaming and justifying and using all of our various coping strategies, there is a part of us that knows that there's something else available to us. So the way most of us see ourselves in the world is, I found this image, it's an art exhibit that I came across this picture and I just thought, oh, this is so what happens in the shadow. We think that we are these broken pieces. We think that we are these broken, scattered pieces of twisted, torqued metal based on our life experiences, based on our traumas, based on our stories, based on the things that we didn't get, based on all of what we think is wrong with us. And yet, if we can just stand in the right way and we can line ourselves up and get that light focused just the right way, it looks to the world like we are a whole human. And this is what we spend all our energy doing, trying to find that angle of light so that no matter how people are looking at us, they see something that looks as if we have it all together. Well, what if we actually don't have it all together? Is that okay? I mean, really? It's often okay for other people to not have it together, but it's very often not okay that I don't have it together. Other people, oh, I can have compassion for them, but can we actually have compassion for ourselves as we are navigating life, right? Being on earth, can we actually hold compassion for ourselves? So how do we shift this? Right? How do we move out of this idea of brokenness? Because this is what unity believes, is that at our heart of our heart, there are no mistakes. You are not broken. There is nothing inherently wrong with you. We do not believe in original sin. We do not believe that there is anything about you other than the truth of your wholeness. And that our journey here on this planet is to reveal that wholeness. That's what we're here to be, to learn how to do in time and in space. And so I've been doing a lot of research. Joe Dispenza, I love the science stuff, you guys, you know that, right? So I've been working with some of the Joe Dispenza stuff, and there is so much just going on with our brains. Right? There is so much going on with our brains. And so I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of how we can consciously become aware of what's available to us, scientifically based, right? So when we are, like right now, I am using what they would call my beta waves. I am speaking, I am engaged, I have a logical, rational sort of problem-solving component that's happening in my brain right now. Beta waves are how most of us show up in the world when we are focused on a task, when we are trying to accomplish something. The thing about beta waves is that they grow as we get older. Isn't that depressing? Right? In some ways, right? They're linked to our logical, rational self. And as we get older, we develop more and more and more and more beta waves when they measure them. The next set of waves that move at a slower rate than the beta waves are the fastest waves, are the alpha waves. Now, alpha waves are what we enter into when we're meditating. Alpha waves are that space where we daydream. Alpha waves are that place where we have a soft focus and we're relaxed a little bit, right? And then the one past alpha would be the theta waves, and that's even slower still. And theta is, if anybody in here has ever had hypnosis, they're working in theta. They're working where your body is completely relaxed. And you are actually in this place. Theta is believed to be the bridge between our conscious and our unconscious mind. So we enter theta right before we fall asleep. Like as we're falling asleep, we go through these brain waves. We start off in beta, we move into alpha, we then step into theta, and as we actually drop into sleep, that's when we enter into delta. Right? So delta is where we recoup and we recover. Theta is where we are actually have available to us our capacity to vision and to imagine and to communicate with our intuition. So what happens when we are in the world and we are caught up in our reactivity is, guess what brainwave we're operating from? Beta. That's right. We are caught in beta. We are caught in this idea that we have a problem to solve, or life is about a problem that we need to fix. And as we grow older, that becomes more and more and more and more habitual. But the truth is, as Einstein so famously said, is we cannot solve a problem from the same consciousness that created it. So no matter how much we want to bring our intellect and our logic and our rationale to whatever it is that's going on in our lives, if we come at it from only with the beta waves, if we come at it from only using that understanding of who we are just going to find ourselves in a loop. Has anybody ever experienced that? Or you think, oh, that's healed, and then whoop, there it is. And it comes right back around again. Now, I do want to say that we never stay in a circle. Think of it as a spiral, right? So there is always some sort of movement. There's always some sort of transformation. But what we're interested in this quantum living process is breaking the spiral open completely so that we aren't circling around ourselves in the same way anymore. So the big question is, moving from beta state, which is all about problem solving, into the alpha state. And in spiritual language, we would call the alpha state witness consciousness or observer consciousness. And this is where the thing that is so present for us right here, that we actually are able to give it some distance. We're actually able to pan back. I love the movie Image, because that's what we're doing with spiritual principle over and over and over again, is we get sort of focused on one thing and we think that that's the only thing that is actually happening. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's called the Ladder of Inference, right? What it is that we're looking for is the thing that our brain is going to actually see. We actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy for ourselves. So I want to see the proof that the world is against me. And so my brain is literally processing all that data, and it is choosing from that what supports my belief that the world is against me. And I am ignoring and missing all the ways that the world is actually for me. So that's beta. That's the beta waves. We become single-minded. We become so absorbed in what we think is happening that we shut ourselves off from what else is possible. When we allow ourselves to build a meditation practice, when we allow ourselves to step into affirmative prayer, what we are doing is we are saying, I am willing to back off from what I think is true. I am willing to acknowledge that there's something else happening here. I am willing to acknowledge that I really don't know. Now we're back to pride. Remember pride? It's really hard to say, I don't know. It's really hard to say, nope, I don't know. I had an interaction with someone this week, and irate, irritated, but grounded and like purposeful, and this is what I want to see happen, and what do you think? And I was so proud of myself because what I said was, I don't know. I don't know enough about this. I am not the person who has the information to be able to answer this for you. I'm glad you brought me data so that I can study it and I can grow in this, but I actually don't know. It was so freeing to be able to admit, I don't know this. To not have to pretend, to think that I'm supposed to know this. So if we're willing to let go and not hold on to things so tightly, not hold on to our story so tightly, that's when we are welcoming the opportunity for deep healing. So in the quantum living class this week, the quantum living folks are working with the past. They're working with how our past feels like it's against us. Can anybody in here relate to that? That something happened in our past, and if it hadn't been for that, everything in my world would be fabulous. And part of what we believe in unity is that there are no mistakes. Right? There are no mistakes. So I was 26 years old. I was roller skating in Golden Gate Park. I fell going down a hill, and I broke my back. And for 10 years, I lived in chronic pain for 7 years, right? For 10 years, I kept seeing myself at that moment at the top of the hill where I thought, wow, that looks really steep. And I went for it. And I kept reliving that moment and thinking, if only, when I thought, that looks really steep, I had thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because that's really steep. But then I realized that I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. That experience opened me up to meditation because I needed to manage the pain. That experience opened me up to spiritual teachings. That experience started me on a path of being a seeker because the medical profession wanted to cut me open and put metal rods in my spine and do all sorts of things that I was just like, give me a minute there, right? I said to the doctor, I can always put the metal rod in my spine. Can I try my way first and let's see what happens? And here I am, right? No metal rods in my spine. But I was willing to let go of this idea that it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It really wasn't. I've actually truly come to know that if I could go back in time, go back in time, and I could tell my younger self, don't go down the hill, I wouldn't tell her that. Because I was not happy. I was not on the path to living a joyful, fulfilled life back then. It was part of my journey, was in that process of experiencing what I experienced when I broke my back. I wouldn't trade that for the world. I do a lot of pastoral care, and I can't tell you the number of cancer patients who have said to me, this has been the greatest gift of my life. And meant it. What if there are no mistakes? What if you were exactly where you were meant to be? What if everything is working together for your greatest good, even those stories from your past? Who would you be if you actually embraced those stories instead of fighting them so much, instead of trying to problem solve them? So, all of this is to say that you cannot step into any of this work from your head, right? It's not head work. It's not intellectual work. It is heart-centered work. It is about moving from the heart. It is about aligning yourself with your deepest intuition. It is about aligning yourself with the feelings. We do a lot of work with feelings in quantum living, and there's lists of feelings. And I got to tell you, people love the lists of feelings because there are so many feelings, and most of us only know like happy, sad, mad, glad, maybe annoyed, right? Irritated, maybe irked. That's a good one, right? Irked. But there's lists of feelings, and you get to become nuanced and identifying, the difference between annoyed and irked. I know what that feels like within myself. The difference between outraged and enraged. Right? There's all these subtle nuances that are available to us that if we're willing to discover who we truly are, it just continues to unfold and moves us in completely new directions. So Carl Jung, again, so the shadow work, I do a lot of Carl Jung quotes. I promise he won't be everywhere going forward, but he is sort of the shadow master, right? Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And that is what everything that we do at Unity is about. To be willing to look inside. Now, I know we've been focusing a lot we've been talking about how the shadow is the parts of yourself that you have disowned, right? And we've been focusing a lot on those being the negative things, your anger, your insecurities, your unworthiness, your sense that you might be unlovable, right? We've been focusing on all of that. And the way we know that those are shadows for us is, and this is very AA, right? If you spot it, you got it. So if you can look out and you can name what someone is being or doing, they are being such a jerk. Guess what? You can be such a jerk too, right? If you can name it, it's yours. If you can spot it, you got it. And this can make us very uncomfortable. But there's also all those parts of ourselves that we have decided, for whatever reason, because we were told, because society told us so, that we are actually cutting ourselves off from, that are actually such gifts. So take a look at this list. How many times have you said, oh my God, that person is so beautiful? Oh, not me, not like me, no, that person's really beautiful. That person is really smart. That person is really engaging. That person is so dynamic. If you can spot it, you got it. So we call this the golden shadow. These are the aspects of yourself that are actually huge gifts that you are also projecting out into the world, that you're actually seeing on other people, that you're not actually owning and recalling and claiming as your own. So shadow work isn't all just about the dark side. There's as much in the shadow work that is also about the light. So Marianne Williamson has famously said that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And that's what I want to invite everyone into this week. Can you look out there for the way that you project the light, the way that you put all the good that you are out there? What do you see? What do you notice out there? And can you actually say, oh, I spotted it. That means I got it. And what does that feel like to actually own the light that you truly are. And notice the resistance. Notice the stories that want to come up, right? Notice what you start to hear. But the truth is that if you spotted it, you got it. So remember that first art exhibit I showed you with the pieces of metal and trying to create wholeness? So I'm inviting you to use this as where we're living from. So that whatever those disparate pieces of ourselves are that we think are separate, that they're actually beautiful. They're actually magnificent. And that they are coming together to create this beautiful, beautiful landscape that is you. And it moves and it shifts, because if a breeze came along, what would happen to that image? It's not static. It's not fixed. It has flow. It has movement. So I'm going to close with The Guest House by Rumi, which I think speaks really perfectly to what we're speaking to today about the darkness and the light. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So what if we lived our life from that? Welcoming everything in. Who would we be? We wouldn't feel separate, would we? Because we'd welcome it all. The joys and the sorrows, we'd welcome all of it. And we are the lighthouse, so we know that we have all that we need to navigate that. Look around at each other. We have each other, right? We can lean on each other. We're not alone in any of this. So our affirmations for today: I am willing to be an open guest house. I welcome the sorrows, and I welcome the joys. And I know that I can navigate the dark with the light of the truth of my being. And so it is. Amen.